He has a hang-up about professional women. He has a tendency to insult accomplished women.
When you become president of the United States, it's beneath your dignity to launch those kinds of attacks.
Mr. President, do you regret the president?
What we're trying to do around here is improve the tone and the civility of the debate. And this obviously doesn't help do that.
First of all, someone bleeding badly at your door and you say no, it sounds like your health care plan.
Hello, I'm Bruce Johnson, and welcome to Off Script. You know, the verbal war between the president and a cable TV couple targeted in the president's tweets. That verbal war continues this evening. In a Washington Post op-ed, Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough said, quote, Mr. Trump claims that we asked to join him at Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row. That is false. He also claimed that he refused to see us. That is laughable. Mr. Trump also claims that Mika was bleeding badly from a facelift. That is also a lie, end quote. Trump had lashed out at the MSNBC host after their show on Thursday, calling Brzezinski in part low IQ, crazy Mika. And the Twitter war continued this morning with the president watching the show, calling it fake news, then tweeting that Scarborough called him to stop a National Enquirer article. Scarborough denied it, saying White House staff warned the couple the Enquirer was planning to publish a negative article unless they called and begged the president to kill the story. Keep it up. Going off script tonight with us is a panel that includes a couple of journalists and a Republican activist and a Democratic activist that you know quite well. Ted Ensign, he's with Politico. Anna, your last name?
Chiaratelli.
There you go. She's with the Washington Examiner. China Dickerson, president of the D.C. Young Democrats, and Evan Young, Montgomery County Young Republicans. Let me ask you all to weigh in briefly as possible on the president getting into this tweeting war with a cable TV couple. What's it about, Evan?
Yeah, it was childish all around because Mika and Joe, they've taken personal shots at Trump in the past, called him names, been very childish. He's returning with a childish tweet about her IQ and about her supposed face job, but she should be so low on his radar and so insignificant. Millions of people every day say good things about him, bad things about him. She should be so insignificant to him that it's not on his radar to respond to. And we're not talking about, you know, the lowest unemployment rate in over a decade. Labor participation rate rising, 39 record closes for the Dow since the election. We're not talking about that because he's just lobbing them softballs.
The president could have been spending a lot of time today talking about we got ISIS on the run. He could have been talking about the South Korean president a lot more. There are a lot of things he could have been talking about today, and there was some of that, but an awful lot about this Twitter war.
Sure, and I think what you have to remember, too, is another headline that could have been there is the health care bill and the fact that Republicans are heading out for the break, and they're not going to be able to pass something until they come back. And even then, it's not clear that they're going to be able to get something through. So not to say this is a distraction tactic, but it certainly could sound that way. And it has kind of redirected the conversation over the last 12 hours or so.
And also the Republicans that are coming out against his tweet about, you know, what he said about Mika, what are they saying about the health care bill? Like, some of them have not commented at all. Gillespie, who's running for governor in Virginia, he hasn't said anything about it, but they are using their time to talk about, to respond to his tweet. So they're being, I think, very cowardly. There are 20-something thousand people a year that will lose health care, and they are even more interested in his tweeting behavior.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think, I mean, looking at the tweets, you had one this morning about health care from Trump. You had another about sending the feds into Chicago. And then you had this Morning Joe one. And the one that actually performed best, and especially among his followers who are supporters of him, was the one about Chicago. The one that performed worst was the one about Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. So I think people, even his followers on Twitter who voted for him, are like, okay, we like what you're doing here helping Chicago. We don't like going after them. I mean, certainly it was 89 million liked it, or I'm sorry, 89 to 69. So people, you know, they want to see actual stuff getting done, I think.
Let me ask you another question about it. This is the president of the United States. He's not even just the candidate now. When he uses the kind of language, you know, against a female, against a woman that he's used in Twitter, what does that say? And then how do we translate and discuss that with, say, our kids?
Yeah, I'll just start by saying, because I'm not a complete hypocrite, if President Obama was tweeting this about a Fox News reporter, I'd be heated. So obviously, there's just certain things you don't say. Think it all you want. Tell it to your, you know, tell it to Melania, but don't put it out in public. And then when it comes to, though, what do you say to your kids? When I do have kids one day, I'm going to raise them, not the television. So, you know, I grew up when Bill Clinton was getting impeached and, you know, doing things with women who are not his wife. My parents raised me, not the television, so I turned out okay.
And this brings us back to the shooting that happened during the congressional baseball practice. Like, you know, both the Republicans and the Democrats, I actually think Trump is bringing the two parties together because Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, you know, they were interviewed together and they both said, you know, we need to bring the temperature down as far as how we're speaking about the president, how he's speaking about, you know, reporters and others. And I think he is setting a precedent, and, you know, it comes from the top. A culture that is very violent and divisive.
And your thoughts on the language coming from the President of the United States?
I also don't have kids yet. I think the language is intended to distract. We were saying earlier that 2 immigration bills got passed in the House this week. No one's talking about that. These are 2 huge immigration bills, Kate's Law and Sanctuary Cities. Is that a win for the White House? Was that intentional? No one knows. And even if they did put out a comment, certainly there's going to be 2 sides, I could argue.
Let me